Hello, welcome. So glad to see all of you here. Niles, could you give us a description of this webinar?
Of course, Karen. Just give a little description of this quarterly facilitator training. Are you feeling drained while leading others through healing? In this virtual training, Marley, a seasoned leader with 20 years of ministry experience, will share how to serve from a full cup, recognize personal triggers, navigate setbacks in your own healing journey. Whether you're new facilitating or a veteran, you'll gain practical tools to lead with strength while protecting your own well-being. Don't miss this chance to refuel and grow.
Thank you, Niles. Without further ado, let me introduce to you Marley Ellenberg. Marley was born and raised in Seneca, South Carolina. She has served in ministry for 20 years. Her span of ministry has included children's and youth ministry, women's ministry, prison ministry, mentoring, marriage enrichment coaching, as well as pastoring at two local churches and serving at Foothills Care Center from 2005 to 2011, and currently overseeing the growing recovery ministry as well as all other programs at Foothills Care Center. Please help me in welcoming Marley. Thanks for being here, Marley.
Thank you so much. Okay, y'all, let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. Excuse my southern drawl. Okay? Born and raised in South Carolina. I'm proud of my southern accent. I'm proud of my roots. And so y'all just be entertained with my accent. I do want to start out with just a moment of gratitude. It is truly an honor to be able to present to facilitators. 20 years ago, whenever I started in pregnancy care ministry, one of the things that gripped me the most was post-abortion care. We see people that are hurting and they're broken, but we also have the opportunity to see amazing transformation. Honestly, that's one of the things that just grabbed me from the beginning, was to watch somebody week by week or session by session be able to progress. I just want to say thank you for the privilege and the honor to be able to speak to all of y'all today. One thing that I've learned along this journey of life is there is one thing that we all have in common, and that's pain. Pain provides us our greatest lesson as we discover what to do with that pain. It reminds me of a childhood story. Being raised in the South, we have pastures and cows and BB guns and all these fun things that we like to go outside and play. This was over 40 years ago, whenever kids used to go outside and play. I had just come home from a trip and ran up to my cousin's house with my dog, who was, of course, my best friend. And my cousin had just gotten a BB gun, okay? And he had pumped that BB gun up. Why in the world we give kids such toys? He made a threatening statement. He said, "I'm going to shoot your dog." Well, my dog was my best friend, and I stepped in front of my dog just as he pulled the trigger, and he shot me. And that BB entered into my foot. Of course, you know, the ramifications, there's an injury, there's blood. He just begs me, "Please, please, please don't tell on me, because they'll take that gun away from me. They'll take the BB gun," right? 2 weeks later, I'm sitting on my grandmother's couch, who I just absolutely adored, and she saw my foot. She said, "Marley, what happened?" Of course, I'm not going to lie to my grandmother, even to cover up for the cousin. I told her what happened, and by then the wound had closed and skin had covered over. There was a scab there, and we just left it. Year after year, it was kind of my fun party joke. You know, tell one little odd thing about you. Well, I have a BB in my foot. It was my party joke. But the funny thing is, as I got older and it began to embed, it really started causing me pain. I would wake up at night, just this aggravating, uncomfortable pain. So last year, I made a promise to myself, really getting serious about self-care. And I made a promise to myself, I'm getting that BB out. I went to the doctor's office, just a regular checkup, and the nurse comes walking in. "Is there anything that's bothering you?" "Well, as a matter of fact, yes, I have a BB in my foot." And yes, she looked at me the way you could expect her to look. And I said, "Yes, that's right, a BB." I expected to make an appointment and come back. No, 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 no. They bring everything out and we do it right there. It was really interesting to watch that process. I'm a curious person. I'm not real squeamish. I just sat there and watched. And she said, "I'm kind of surprised you didn't try to do this yourself." She said, "I'm glad you didn't, because it's very adhered. Scar tissue is holding on to it." It took her a minute to dig down in there and get it detached and put a couple stitches in there and sew it up. And now I've just got a scar. And the pain that was is no longer, but that scar remains. And it reminds me of things that we experience in life. My thought for today is we heal and we continue to heal. I actually have the little BB right here. I held on to it. The nurse really got a strange look on that one. And I said, honey, that thing's been with me for over 40 years, and that's quite the story. I will hold on to that. It is a reminder that we can think that something is really small, that these are small things that we experience, or we can experience big things, but they root down into our soul, and it takes some work. It takes some work to dig those things out, to cut those things out, and realize healing. One of the things that I've realized about trauma is that trauma changes us. Healing is not returning to where we were, but it's realizing who we are now. And a lot of times, whenever we experience hard things in our life, we question, we don't understand, but it's just remembering and trusting the process that we're all in, because we're all in this together. Again, we all have pain. We're talking today about triggers and what triggers are. Let me share this definition. In mental health terms, a trigger refers to something that affects your emotional state, often significantly, by causing extreme overwhelm or distress. A trigger affects your ability to remain present in the moment. It may bring up specific thought patterns or influence your behavior. And I really want to zero in on that statement. It affects your ability to be present, because triggers do exactly that. They trigger us to go back to a moment and then to begin to fear what may be about to happen. Triggers are anything that might cause a person to recall a traumatic experience they've had. For example, graphic images of violence might be a trigger for some people. Less obvious things are songs, odors, even colors can be triggers. Now, it's really interesting because in our culture, we often use the phrase, don't trigger me. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't do that because it'll trigger me. And we end up constructing our life with all of these things that we try to avoid. But what I want to challenge you with today is to begin to look at those triggers as warning lights on your dashboard. As we're driving down the road in our car and that little light comes up, check engine, check this, check that. I've got a tire light that keeps on coming on my car, aggravating me. It's bringing me awareness that something is wrong with my vehicle. I just want to challenge you to look at triggers like that. Here's the reason why I say that. I want to talk a little bit about the limbic system. The limbic system is where in the brain those triggers originate. And to me, over the past year, learning about the limbic system has been one of the most powerful and fascinating things that I have dug into in a long time, especially whenever it comes to recovery ministry. If we can teach ourselves and teach others about how this thing actually works, that's pretty powerful, because a lot of times what we perceive here can feel like it's reality whenever it's actually not. Let's talk a little bit about the limbic system. It functions processing and regulating emotions, forming and retrieving memories, and controlling basic survival behaviors like feeding, reproduction, fight or flight. This is where fight or flight originates from, is in that limbic system. Let me explain it like this. You're a little child and a house fire. And as you grow older, whenever you smell smoke, it takes you back to that moment. Let me tell you why that happens. Your brain records everything that you're experiencing. Every sight, every smell, every sound. That limbic system is our warning system. It is constantly assessing all around us of what's happening, what's going on. And the really interesting thing is this autonomic. Just like I don't have to think about breathing, I don't have to think about my heart beating, I don't think about digestion, all of those things just automatically happen. Your limbic system is the same way. So your limbic system has all of these things going on. It's recording. Whenever something bad has happened or good, but we're going to focus on trauma right now. Whenever a trauma has happened, all of that data is downloaded into your brain. Whenever you're out and about, or you're sitting in a session, or you're doing whatever you do, and you hear something, smell something, see something, it begins to take you back to that moment because your limbic system has no awareness of time. Prefrontal cortex understands time. Limbic system does not understand time. There is no continuum. The problem is now. The emergency is now. The trouble is now. The last time I smelt that, the last time I heard that, big problem, big trouble. And the other interesting thing is that whenever your limbic system kicks in, it actually changes the systems in your body. There's a reason why we call it fight or flight. You are literally getting ready to either fight or run. I know that we've got fawn, we've got freeze, we've got all of those. We're just going to focus on fight or flight right now. Whenever you're triggered and that limbic system switch turns on, the systems in your body actually change. Have you ever felt afraid and you feel that tingly sensation in your arms and legs? That's fight or flight. Your breathing gets shallow. It changes your digestion. It changes your heart rate. It changes all of these systems in your body. That's the reason why we want to work through our trauma, because we don't want to stay in this place that just wreaks havoc on our bodies. It is amazing that whenever we are triggered, we begin to hear a stream of thought. If this happens and if that happens, I understood fight or flight, but I didn't understand that it had a voice. A lot of times we hear different conversations, different voices, different things happening, but that voice that kind of sounds like a spiral that's going down the drain, that's connected to your limbic system. I want to talk a little bit next about triggers or not. Again, as we look at triggers, we look at our culture and how we currently look at triggers, it can be in a negative light. But if we look at them as functional and have understanding of them, they're actually another tool for us. So here's what triggers are not. Triggers are not places to be avoided. I know that a lot of times whenever trauma runs deep, we need to take it slow. We need to have good counselors, good mentors, good friends, good support systems. We have to listen to ourselves. What I love to tell people is the first person you parent is yourself. A lot of counselors will actually call that limbic system, that lower part of our brain, it'll actually call it the toddler brain. If you look at it as that, we're the first person that we ever parent. So whenever your child is upset, what is the first thing that you ask them? What's wrong? What do you need? So often we need to ask ourselves that. That's the reason why I say they're not places to be avoided, but instead to ask myself, wait a minute, what's happening? What do I need? Another thing that triggers are not failures. We are all on this journey of healing together. I have heard people talk about being triggered by something, and it's almost like they lost something, they did something wrong. And again, it's just a function of our system. We really have to learn to show ourselves compassion and grace because we all experience triggers. Triggers are not a weakness. We see it every time we have a group. We see it every time we have a one-on-one session with somebody. Choosing to heal is not a weakness, it's a strength. Now I want to talk about what to do if triggered. Let me share that whenever we talk about the function of it, it can almost feel hopeless, but knowledge is power. And one of the beautiful things is that whenever that limbic system switch is flipped, there is a way to counteract that. You can also look at your limbic system as your home alarm system and knowing your code. For me, what that looks like, and for a lot of us, you're just going to take a deep breath. You're going to ask yourself questions. And let me tell you the reason why this works. I don't know about you, but whenever I used to get stressed or nervous or anxious or something like that, people say, just breathe. People have it on their t-shirts, just breathe. And that can seem really silly until you understand the why. Now, remember, whenever we were talking about what triggers are, we talked about how it changed the systems in our body and you start breathing shallow. Whenever you intentionally take a deep breath, it is signaling to your limbic system, I'm okay. You can also tell yourself, I'm okay. I have a tendency to put my hands on my chest to give that pressure and that weight. I'm okay. I often think about whenever my boys were little and they were scared by something, I would hold them tight. I'm okay. So many times we get triggered and we start feeling those things happening. It can be as easy as just reassuring ourselves that we're okay. Let's talk about if we're in group and story is being shared, something is happening and you feel triggered. What are some things that we can do if we're triggered? One thing that I really encourage you to do is have a plan, anticipate, be intentional. Know it's going to happen. Whenever we're in groups, we talk about some really serious stuff. And people share things in groups that sometimes they haven't even shared with their closest friend or family member. We can hear some really hard things. Whenever we've experienced that ourselves, that's really difficult. So, what am I going to do if I feel triggered? One thing that I really encourage you to do is practice breathing. We're going to go over breathing in just a moment, but to really practice breathing, give yourself permission, be gracious to yourself. If you need to pause group and get up and walk out of the room and get yourself a glass of water, that's one of the best ways to get your limbic system to calm down, is just to be able to step away and take that breath. Because one thing that I really believe that leaders model. We share a lot of information with participants that we come in contact with, but we also need to model those things, be transparent, and say, hey guys, I need to step aside for a moment. Our prefrontal cortex is where our logic is, where our conscious is, where we're being present. Have you ever gotten so angry that you said something and you did something, and then maybe a few minutes later you look back and it's like, I can't believe I did that? It's almost like you don't recognize yourself. That's how you can see the difference between your limbic system and your prefrontal. If we're feeling triggered, one of the best things to do is to breathe. It has to be very intentional. You're going to make a sound and it's going to sound like a sigh. Once you're done, this is also an opportunity to educate those around you, because everybody has a limbic system and everybody needs to know this information. So what you do is you just take in a very deep, intentional breath for 3 seconds. You're going to hold it for 3 seconds and then let it out. And it's cleansing, yes, but it is also letting your limbic system know there's no danger. Prefrontal cortex is back engaged and you're able to navigate. So helpful. There's also something else called progressive muscle relaxation, which is focusing on a certain part of your body, maybe like your upper body, and you tense all those muscles for several seconds and then you release. Such an amazing feeling. Even if you flex your legs just for a few seconds and then release, you feel what that does on the inside of you. It actually fools your limbic system that the fight's over because you've just relaxed. And so that also helps it to calm down as well. As we're talking about facilitating and leading groups, have a person that you trust, that you can be very transparent and vulnerable with, so that once you get out of group, you're able to give them a call and say, here's what I was feeling, here's what I was experiencing. Because a lot of times I can feel self-conscious talking about myself, talking about what I'm struggling with, but it is absolutely essential to say those words out of your mouth, because your limbic system releases these emotions and it releases these thoughts, and you need to process through those thoughts. It's very easy. We've seen it with people in our groups. We've seen it with ourselves. Whenever we experience trauma, there are lies that are connected with those trauma. If we've been sexually abused, if we've experienced domestic violence, there's things that we can believe about ourselves that absolutely are not true. You really need to have a person that during this time, let that be part of your process of getting ready for your group. Your group's going to start in 2 weeks. You call your friend and say, hey, I've got a group starting up and I'm going to need you. Have them on call. Take them out to coffee and have that time. Beyond that, my last point in this is to know your purpose. I have been in this movement for 20 years, and the things that we do, the things that we engage with, we see the devastation of abortion, and we seek to help people that are struggling with that. Let me reiterate that part about processing, because the limbic system can be absolutely ruthless to ourselves. I often say the worst perpetrator I've ever had in my life is myself. If I ever talked to my friends the way I talk to myself, I wouldn't have any friends. Nobody would be able to stand to be around me. But yet we tolerate that from ourselves. We tolerate lies about ourselves. If a friend lies to me, I get angry and I'm ready to cut them out of my life. But I receive lies from myself each and every day. Handling our business, we have to deal with that chaos, that static that can often happen from our trauma experiences and sort through those. And just a little plug here, Unraveled Roots is really great for that. I love the function of that study. Trauma has a tendency to attack our identity. What we're thinking about is very, very powerful. So have a plan, have a purpose, have a person, and know your purpose. That's our key 3 things. But beyond the 3 P's, are we pouring from a full cup? And the words that I want to share is personal well-being. We each have personhood. We each have control over this person, this body, and nothing else. If you go through any studies on boundaries, codependency, any of those things, we begin to see more and more that our frustration is caused by a lack of boundaries in our lives. Having boundaries with ourselves and having boundaries with others is so important. But being very mindful that we have a mental state, we have a physical body, we have a spirit, we have our emotions, being aware of all of those things and taking responsibility for our personhood. Like I talked about at the beginning about going to the doctor. A lot of times whenever we talk about self-care, it's go get the hair done, go get the nails done. But self-care is really about taking responsibility for self. If I need to go to the dentist, if I need to go to the doctor, whatever it is I need to do, let's be doing those things. Let's be taking care of those things. Because with our personal well-being, what we desire to do is to be present. To be just like we're having to be very present in this moment. If I wasn't present in this moment as I'm leading, as I'm talking in this webinar, this would be a mess. If I was thinking about what happened yesterday or what I'm doing tomorrow, we have to be present. Being careful of our own well-being and taking care of ourselves allows us to be present. So what does this all look like as individuals who seek to help others? Having personal well-being as a facilitator, we have to model that behavior because it's so in group to tell them, you need to be focused on self-care. We're fixing to go into this study where a lot of things are going to be coming up and you're going to be experiencing a lot of emotions that you haven't experienced. So be sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're drinking your water and you're getting adequate sleep. We know the list that we go down, but how often do we apply that to ourselves? To conclude, the things that we can do for ourselves is we can be honest with ourselves, we can be compassionate with ourselves, and don't just say it, do it. I really feel like somebody needs to hear that today, that some of this is registered within your own heart. Whatever it is, there's something that you've been procrastinating about doing, and I want to encourage you, do it today.
Marla, can I ask a question? I mean, this is really riveting. I'm hearing that we have trauma, that a trigger, a sight, a sound, a smell that triggers us to take us back to that time. That doesn't sound like really good news to me. Like it's like a knee-jerk reaction. I don't hear any hope in that. Is there hope? If you can't control it, it's subconscious. What do you do?
Okay, let's remember this first. Your limbic system is a function. This is a system. This is what keeps us alive each and every day. This is what keeps us from stepping off the curb in front of a bus. If we have understanding of it, then we know what to do with it. It's whenever we perceive that all of this is real, of what we're feeling, is where the problem comes into play. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying
Wonderful.
that. It's a good thing disguised as not.
Yes. Well, you imagine your life without a limbic system, we would be walking into fires and picking up hot pans. We wouldn't last very long.
Hey, Marley, can you share a time when you've been leading a group when you've been triggered and what you did?
Yes. For me, conflict, anger triggers me whenever somebody is really getting intense. I can feel triggered by that. I remember one moment I was in group, we were in face-to-face group. A lady was sitting right next to me, and she was getting very, very angry. Her chest was red. And I was sitting there, and my question was, are you angry? My question to the group was, are you angry? And she said, no, but yet I'm seeing it. And the fact that I was triggered by that anger, I just took a deep breath. As she was sharing a little bit, I took a deep breath and I breathed through those things. But that trigger actually helped me to identify her anger. And I was able to look at her and say, I understand you may not feel you're experiencing anger, but your body's telling me something else. So it actually worked as a benefit in that moment.
That's so good because as facilitators and people that are committed to the healing journey, our own healing, pouring into ourselves, you would think that resolved trauma wouldn't lead to triggers, but that's not true. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. Again, remember, this is a function. A lot of times we want to make sense of things, but that stimuli is still there. That recording in our brain is still there, and we can still have reactions to it. Just like where I had surgery at, where they cut the BB at, I can still have sensation there, but I know what it is. I know it's a place where there was a wound and now there is healing. Instead of that wound controlling my behavior, I can now have control over my behavior. It is absolutely about what is in control of your prefrontal cortex and your logic.
And that's really good, Marley, because what you're talking to now is awareness of what your triggers are.
And we can get surprised, but I think as facilitators, as leaders, self-awareness and handling our business is key. Whenever we choose to step into the role of a facilitator, we have to do the work.
Let me bring Niles into this conversation for the guys that are in the room. Niles, have you ever been in a situation when you've been triggered? And what was that like for you?
One of my things as being triggered, I've had different situations just growing up as well as an athlete, just in different things, especially after my abortion experience. But when I feel triggered, I'll have this process of taking, like Marley mentioned, a deep breath, which is me just coming to bring myself to balance and giving myself a chance to breathe. Because when I don't like that feeling of shallowness of breath, not feeling like I'm out of control, and I feel like that's one of the most important things to me is feeling like how can I have control? Because as we know with men, we like to fix things and feel like we have a level of control over things. So I think being able to have that control over my breathing. Also, if I have access to it, I like to listen to music. And I don't say just any kind of music, but I love to listen to slower music. I'm a big fan of old school R&B. That's one of my things. Like people like Otis really brings me to balance. I have a saying that I love to say from Bruce Lee a lot, be water, my friend. And that just teaches the way of being able to adapt to every situation and be able to flow freely. So those are a few things that bring me to balance and like I think about and keep me in a good place. So when I feel triggered, it brings me all back to myself.
That's so good. Thanks for sharing that, Niles. I know what triggers me. It's any kind of domestic violence or sexual trauma or stuff like that. But as a guy, can you share with us, like you're an athlete, so I would imagine that through your years of playing football, that a coach would say something to you in a certain way and it would trigger you. Can you share something specific like that for us?
I've always had a trigger, especially growing up. I hated when somebody tried to make me feel small. Because you that met me and see me, I'm a very large guy, especially someone to play football. I feel like when you're attacking me to make me feel small or attacking my character, certain things like that, because I take a lot of pride in being one of those people that people can come to, a person of high character, and just holding myself to a higher standard. When I feel like I'm being attacked in my character or somebody's saying that something that's out of my character when that's not my intent, I think those are things that trigger me. growing up, I was always bigger than everybody in my class, and sometimes I would be seen as this big monster, or I'd be treated my size instead of my age. That's always been something that's been in my mind. I never want to feel like I'm towering over anybody or making anybody feel threatened. So if I ever had that happen, I feel triggered. Like Marley said, that could come from just small situations that can make me feel a little bit of anxiety or overwhelmed. So I just like to balance myself in those situations.
Niles, thanks for being so transparent. That's a great example.
That was beautiful, Niles. Wow, what understanding you have. We
Marley,
must.
what are some of the obstacles that would come up for us when we either are not accepting or aware of triggers or aren't adequately pouring into ourselves?
Some of the obstacles to doing this is lies that we tell ourselves. We may be going down that little checklist and, oh, I don't need to do that. Oh, I'm fine. I don't need to do that. There's one thing in trying to soothe yourself and saying, I'm safe and I'm okay. There's another thing to be experiencing something, to be shoving it down that much further. I'm fine. I'm fine. You're dismissing what you're experiencing. We have to be very careful between the action of soothing ourselves and dismissing ourselves. I think about, again, a little child coming up. Little child is upset, and you know how tendency we can have to just wave a child away. And we don't want to do that. We see what it does to them, but it does the same to ourselves. The lies we tell ourselves, let's not just tell ourselves that we're fine. Let's make sure that we do what we need to do to make sure that we are fine. Our personal well-being is healthy as it can be. We're in a place to where we're giving ourselves everything that we need. Another obstacle is guilt and shame.
What's the difference between the two?
Guilt is focused with our choices, is focused with behavior, things that we do. I made a choice and I feel bad that I did that. Shame goes to the very core of who we are and our identity. For me, shame is more of a limbic response than guilt is. The reason why I say that is that it's to our identity. It just goes so deep. It's almost as if our existence feels threatened. Nobody likes that feeling of shame. I am bad. And that can be a real obstacle whenever it comes to triggers, because triggers want to scream in our existence that we are bad. Look at you, you're weak, you're this, you're that. You're worthless. All of those voices that we hear, and we have to be able to take command over those and not submit to the shame or the guilt. The other thing that can get in our way is pride. This is one of my big ones. I was raised as a Southern woman. You don't show it, you don't express it. That's weakness. You have to roll up your sleeves, dig in your heels. We don't show weakness. I had to grow up and understand that talking about my feelings and talking about my vulnerabilities isn't weakness. It's the ability to connect so deeply with others around me. And what a privilege and what an honor it is to be able to do that.
I just want to bring Niles into this briefly,
Yeah.
Niles. I saw you shaking your head when she said the pride word. So you want to share what was going on with you there?
I think a lot of men can also relate to that pride. A lot of men, that's one of our biggest downfalls, our pride, and us feeling like we have everything handled and we don't want to show that emotion. So that's why I just shook my head to that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Stacy, do we have some questions in the chat from people that are in attendance?
Yes, we do. The first question, Marley, is you talked about triggers not being failures. Can you expand on that? It's hard not to feel like I've messed up when something sets me off or sets me back.
Absolutely. What a powerful statement. I think it's one that we can definitely all identify with, because whenever we're talking about trauma, trauma goes deep. But trauma also tries to attach itself to our identity. Part of healing is to basically have that surgery where that is separated. The way that I look at triggers now is it is part of my process of healing. And it also gives me an opportunity to be like, I may not have done this exactly right, but I have progressed. I may have gotten a little upset, but not the way that I used to. Again, going back to that, be compassionate to yourself, because triggers are not failures.
That's a great answer. Lisa, is asking, what was the muscle tightening and releasing exercise called?
It is called progressive muscle relaxation. And
Can you
again,
demonstrate that again, Marley?
I'm going to focus on my upper body and I'm going to tighten the muscles in my arms. Think about picking up a weight, that tension that you feel. Flex those muscles in your arms and your shoulders, maybe even in your back. Hold that for about 3 to 5 seconds and then just release. The sense of relaxation that you feel in your body is what you're wanting to connect with.
Niles, have you ever done anything like that?
Yes, I do it often. I still work out. So a lot of what Marley is saying is things I still practice, especially when I have bigger lifts or certain exercises that are really pushing me. That is something definitely I practice consistently. And I try to do as much as I can just to help me get through those tough times.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Another question is, how do I balance being vulnerable and authentic with the group without making it about me?
Great question. This is not something that we all deal with because we use the word vulnerable and authentic, but it can feel like a balancing act. For me, it's going to be how I phrase things. If I'm in group and I need to step away for a moment, I may excuse myself for a moment. And whenever I come back, I may use it as a teaching moment. It's all in how we present it because I'm wanting to manage my triggers. I'm wanting to manage my emotions and how I'm feeling so that it doesn't become all about me. Because as a facilitator, if I'm beginning to feel emotional, if I'm beginning to feel like I'm having a meltdown, it is definitely going to end up becoming about me. If I need to step away and come back to the group, I'm going to share with them. Let me just share real quick. This is what took place. This is what I experienced, and here's what I did. I always like to use those as teaching moments.
Marley, are you saying that there have been times when you've actually left group just to collect yourself? How is that received by the participants?
I would just step away briefly. Excuse me, guys, talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back. Come back, and then just be able to share that with them. Honestly, it becomes a deeper point of connection because a lot of times as facilitators, we can be seen as up here and our participants are here whenever we really want to be seeing eye to eye and making those deep connections, because it's with those deep connections we're building trust. I often say we have to earn the right to be heard. I don't want to come into class and just spout my knowledge. I earn the right to be heard. In this moment, a lot of times that's the way that I will see it, is an opportunity to build trust in that. And again, using it as a teaching moment.
Yeah, and I bet you how they respected you just was elevated as a result of that. When we show our struggle to other people and what we've done to overcome it, it is a teaching moment.
Another question, you said not just to say self-care, but to do it. And you give practical examples of what that looks like.
Absolutely. We have a tendency, I think the vast majority of us being facilitators, we're doers. And it is easy to just continue to do task after task after task and not make that time for rest. Now, let me also say there's not just a cut and dry way to do this. I have to be aware of what soothes me, what do I need in this moment, how do I best take care of myself, whether it's making sure I'm drinking my water, making sure I am getting movement each and every day, making those doctor's appointments, dentist appointments. Do I need to go check in with the counselor? I experienced that last year as part of my self-care of coming back into the world of nonprofit. Let me connect with the counselor as I make this change and transition in my life to make sure I've got somebody that's helping me navigate. So it is really about being honest with yourself, knowing what you need, and then providing it.
It is really great. I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. You mentioned having a person. How do I find the right kind of support person for this role?
That is going to need to be somebody in your life that you probably already have. And it's a bi-directional relationship. If I'm triggered in any moment during this seminar, is probably this one. because as a facilitator, as a leader, people are always looking to me for the information. They're looking to me to give them the advice. And I need to look in my small circle and ask myself, who's there for me? Who listens to me? Who is willing to enter into that conversation without adding anything on me? We have to be really honest with whoever that person is that we pick. We have to let them know during this time of group, I am picking you to be my person so that whenever I feel triggered, I have someone to talk to. But I need to put this boundary in place. It's not going to be reciprocated. We just have to be honest. I think a lot of times that's where we trip ourselves up, is by not being honest.
Yeah, that's really good. With that, it's a wrap. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you at the next webinar.